The Relocate Awards Night has become a major annual fixture for all those involved in global mobility and relocation. The awards themselves represent a high-profile recognition of the best the industry has to offer. The awards ceremony and dinner is a perfect opportunity to meet and network. But how do you get here? The first step is to compile a winning submission.
Well, I think the entry statement is absolutely critical. We do want to see that entry statement convinces us why you should win. Don't leave it to us to try and infer that. You actually have to tell us. So be really inspirational. Make yourself stand out from the pack. And a good way to do it is to use some examples of things that you've done that might be new, different, exciting, challenging. And if you haven't done anything new, different, exciting or challenging, don't lose heart. Think of something that you do on an everyday basis and sell it to us. Show us how you do it really, really well. And do make sure that you keep it within the word count as well. Don't go rambling on with it. You know, be nice and precise and clear in it, because it's going to be the decider. If there's a draw or a tie, it will be the decider upon which we will make that decision.
And there are a lot of entry criteria that you've also got to complete. I mean, let's take them one at a time.
Yep.
One of them is you've got to talk about innovation and achievement.
And again, it's a way of showing and demonstrating by example what you've done. Don't be afraid to make a few mistakes. You know, if you've actually done something, it didn't work out all that well, but you got some brilliant learning points from it, then put those down, because that is something that will make you stand out, and that will look very good and be very helpful.
And what happens if you haven't done anything particularly original in the previous year? Can you still put things in?
You can go back, but we are really looking for things that are relatively current. So what you might want to do is just think about things differently. So think about things from a different angle. Step back from what you do on an everyday basis and think about, you know, why do we do it this way? How have we done, and how have we done it well? So try and look for examples that would illustrate that. So I wouldn't advise you to go back historically for decades to try and find a good example. I bet you've got lots of good examples that you've done recently. It's just a question of thinking about what you've done. Maybe brainstorm with some people in your team to think of things that you've done that are really good examples.
And teamwork, I mean, what happens if you don't have a big team or that isn't a big element? I mean, how should you address that as one of the entry criteria?
That's not a problem. You can be a team of 2 and a team of 22. It really doesn't matter about the size of your team. I think what we're looking for is how you work together and how you work together efficiently, effectively, how you support each other. I mean, we're all really busy these days. How do you provide cover? You know, if somebody was unwell, how might you cover that? How can you actually support for, you know, relocation examples around the world if your team is, for example, virtual or scattered around the world? So there's lots of ways that you can think about addressing that.
And leadership, I mean, that seems fairly obvious at face value, but presumably critical, I would have thought, for these sort of awards.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that the thing here that's very important is we're not looking for you to tell us you're a market leader. Okay, we're looking for you to show us how you lead your people. So what sort of leadership styles or strategies do you use? And can you illustrate those with some examples? So once again, you could perhaps come up with some challenges, some problems. How did you resolve them? What did you learn from it?
One of the other criteria is effective use of resources. What does that mean?
Well, we're all under a lot of pressure, aren't we? So it's issues about time and issues about money, but it's also about how you've delivered a good service. So it might be how you cut costs. It might be how you trimmed those back to make it more cost effective for your client. It might be, though, that you'd rather be investing in a much better, much higher quality service, but how have you used the resources that you have or your client has to deliver that and deliver that effectively? So once again, if you can come up with some examples of that, that's really very helpful. I think I'd always say, you know, if you can tell a little story, very briefly, but a little story will actually bring that to life for the judges.
You're almost referring there to supporting material, I suppose, but can you add other bits of supporting material to
Well,
support
you
your
can, but there
application?
is a limit on the number of pages of this. And I think what you do have to remember is that the judges have got a lot of these entries to go through. So we do tend to put a page limit on how much you can supply. So we do ask you to stick to that, please. But obviously you can be quite clever in how you do that. It's good to have some testimonials, but for example, we don't really need pages and pages and pages that say how fantastic you are. Maybe we just need a few that illustrate the key points. Another thing is you can illustrate your journey, and quite often organisations, when they've introduced new services or new practices, they might have done a slideshow on it, a presentation. So what you can possibly do is show us those slides, but make sure that you sort of preface it so we actually know what that supporting material is referring to, how it links into your entry statement, or how it might link into the categories that are supporting your entry statement. Because remember, we have to make sense of this. So just supplying a whole pile of bump doesn't help you. It must be relevant and it must support your entry. Go back over what you've done. And if anything, you might want to write the entry statement at the end. So fill in all your boxes of all the sort of supporting categories and then distill it and then go back and think about how you might put that together for the entry statement. Make the entry statement different from the supporting boxes. Don't use the same examples over and over again. Make sure you draw upon different examples. Check your work through. Make sure that it's proofed correctly. That's obviously straightforward to do, but quite important nonetheless. So I think the thing is also have fun with it. You know, think about things in a different way. Don't think it's daunting. Just try to step back, think about what you do, think about the excellent things you've achieved, and then sell it to us. Tell us why you should win.